everyone who is afraid about starting a law firm and getting going, it is way easier than you would ever imagine to win, because it's easy to make a lot of different mistakes and people hold different mistakes differently, right? There's things that are like pretty easy to win on.
Welcome to How to Start and Run a Law Firm. I'm your host, Mark Lyda. We've got a great episode for you today. It's my great friend, Ashon KcKenzie. We've been friends for well over 15 years, almost 20 years now. We went to law school together, and after an illustrious government and nonprofit career, he decided to take the plunge and hang up his own shingle. He has done a lot of thinking about making that transition, about getting clients, a lot of really actionable advice and lessons in this one. So without further ado, let's dive in. All right, my guest today began his career, first of all, at Notre Dame Law School. Following law school, he became an assistant attorney general at the Ohio Attorney General's office, and then deputy legal counsel and policy advisor in the Ohio Senate. He then went on to a series of nonprofits, first as Ohio Policy Director for the Children's Defense Fund, then as the Director of Strategic Initiatives for Celebrate One, which is another children's nonprofit, followed by becoming the executive director for Illinois of Start Early. All of those things that's like for babies. None of that benefits me. I'm a grown adult. I don't really see the point. And then he went on to, after his illustrious and very altruistic nonprofit career serving children and families, he chose to serve them in a different way by hanging his own shingle at McKenzie Law, where he practices estate planning law, which also protects children. Welcome to the podcast.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Mark. I really appreciate you having me. It's not as often that I get such a awesome introduction, and the special emphasis on children and the distance between who I serve then and sort of their grandparents that I serve now, which is kind of cool, kind of fun. But yeah, that's a quick link through the journey. And the one thing I'll note in the middle of that was midway through that journey, I realized I want to start a law firm. So I did spend some time in the background there with an estate planning firm.
Okay, so I think that's a really valuable thing. If you think about our listeners mostly being people who are thinking about taking the plunge to starting their own firm, or people who have started their own firm, is that it doesn't have to be completely binary. Like you did some sort of dipping your toe in to make it gradual, and that's a really worthwhile strategy. I'll also note in your bio, Ashon and I were friends in law school. We went to law school together, same year and everything. One of my best friends at Notre Dame, and here's why: because my name is spelled Lyda and his is McKenzie. And they divided us alphabetically for our campus tours at 1L orientation. And so basically, my friends largely consisted of people in the LY to MC range. Because, make your friends the first day and then study the rest of the time. Just kidding. There were other friends, but there were a lot of MCs at Notre Dame. You got the Andy McCarthys, the Ethan McWilliams, the Ashon McKenzies of the world. That's not the only reason we're friends, but it didn't hurt.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good thing to know, which I don't think I made that logical connection that like most of my friends are in the L through M category.
So McKenzie Law officially, at least it's showing on your LinkedIn, as starting in March 2020, which is a pretty historic month in human history, by the way. A lot of the great companies in history were started in really difficult historical times, especially difficult economic times. But yeah, anyway, walk us through it. And, estate planning, by the way, yes, you're on the other end of the age spectrum when you're serving grandparents instead of babies, but it's for the purpose largely often of protecting children and taking care of people after you're gone. So I definitely see a through line. But walk us through the thought process from when you first thought you might want to have your own firm all the way to when you actually did it.
Yeah, great question. So when I sort of think back and put all the pieces together, for me, there were a couple different things that made me think, hey, I might want to have my own firm. One, I've been working in the government space for a good while, and I've worked with just like absolutely phenomenal people. But also, when you're in the government space, people turn over, right? Great people that you work with run for something new, elected offices turn over, the person you work with one time got elected to this other cool thing. And so I was starting to think like, man, where do I find, I know a lot of people find comfort in like, hey, I'm in this like W-2 role and I'm here and this stability. And I kept thinking, man, this doesn't feel like stability because the person I'm working with could get elected to something new like next year. And, there always was a revolving door, not of people getting boosted out, but of people moving up. And so I thought, man, like, how do I create this level of certainty for myself and for my family? And I was like, I had to look at my own heritage, which was I'd never seen either of my parents work at a job a day in my life. Both my parents had been small business owners. My dad had a mortgage real estate company. My mom had a Christian bookstore. I'd always only ever seen them in entrepreneurship. And for a while, I kind of veered away from that. And as I was thinking through at this point into my life, I was like, man, what a smart thing that they were doing. So I was like, well, I started looking through like, what are the skills I already have? What can I already do? And I was like, well, I am an attorney. I did graduate from Notre Dame Law School. I have these skills and these things I've had the chance to work with, but I hadn't been on the inside of a firm environment in my legal career. I'd been in government and nonprofits. And so I was like, all right, well, I got to figure this thing out. And so I started reaching out to some of my friends who own law firms. I think, Mark, you were among some of the early ones as well. I reached out like, hey, look, can I share a couple thoughts? This is kind of what I might be thinking. What do you think? What are you doing? How'd you get started? I had one friend who, I was asking some questions and trying to figure out what I wanted to do. He was like, man, you've got to talk with this other guy I know. He's had a firm for a couple of years. I just think you guys are going to vibe. And so I sat down with him, started talking through what I was trying to do and just like, hey, look, this is the environment that I come from, but I want to get my head around what this looks like. And it just so happened, he was like, well, cool. I've had my firm for the last 3 years now. We're at a really important inflection point and I'm just running out of capacity. So we came with an agreement. I would do work with his firm. In exchange, he'd show me what it looked like to run and manage a firm. That was in like February of 2020. I created my firm so that I could enter into a contract attorney relationship with this firm. That would give me some autonomy to what I was doing and how I was doing things, but also make sure that I didn't have to try to do stuff I wasn't really ready to do, like hunt for new clients and things like that. And so it gave me a really cool cover to get started with and start to kind of see how things could look and develop. So that was like start number one. Start number two, I was with a large nonprofit in Chicago. And so I was going back and forth. I was literally commuting to Chicago from Ohio, staying there a few days a week, coming back. And so, I have kids, I have 4 kids. And I kept thinking to myself in the evenings after I'd finished all the work I needed to do in Chicago, I was just like, oh my gosh, I have all this free time on my hands. Normally I'm putting kids to bed and doing nighttime routines and manage all these pieces. And I'm like, man, I'm at the end of a work day. And what am I supposed to do with the remainder of my day? And I remember it was really distinctively, I was in a hotel in Chicago. I was like not the hugest fan of the show Everybody Loves Raymond, but I just finished watching an episode because I didn't have anything else to do. I turned that off. I put my headphones to listen to some music. I'm listening to a song by Big Sean where he's like, I'm so happy. He's talking about all the things he's doing and the work that he's involved in. He's like, I'm so happy. I hope I never have to go back to watching Everybody Loves Raymond. I was like, oh man, that was exactly how I feel in this moment. And I was like, man, I know that I have more in the tank. Like I just have more in the tank and I'm not using everything that I have. And this thought started to reoccur to me like, man, how do you get certainty and stability? Most people think about it through a W-2. And I was like, I think about it through entrepreneurship. And so that's when it really, like I started working and researching. Hey, look, I know I want to do something. What is I'm going to do? How am I going to do this? About 2 months later, there was the intersection of some friends of mine reaching out. And at this time, I wasn't still doing work with that other firm. They had the friend who was doing that had done a fabulous job building his firm, exited, got purchased by a bigger firm. And it's just like, I was so happy for him. Some friends reached out to me like, hey, look, can you do some estate planning for us? You were doing some work before. Are you still doing that? And just as I was getting ready to refer them, it felt like my whole spirit inside of me was like, you've been looking for the business to do. This is it. Get started. Here are your first clients. And so I didn't know what I was doing, but I made them an offer. They said yes. I let them know they were going to be my first clients individually. They were cool with it. And I was like, cool, I got the work. And that's how it actually got in motion. And all those things sort of happened in that little time sequence. So that was like start number 2. And then I'll just wrap up with start number 3, right? That got the ball rolling. And that's when I really started researching and trying to figure out what is this thing? What could this thing be? And I really started to throw down the gauntlet and said, I'm really going to build this thing in March of 2024. So that was the third start.
I love that. Start one, start two, start three, because when you go into something like this, you sort of have a preconception of how it's going to go based on what you see on people's LinkedIn and everything. LinkedIn is like, it's sort of as dangerous as scrolling Instagram for like a teenager, and it affects self-esteem. It's the same for LinkedIn because you think everybody's doing so well. And then, and so it gives you this sense of there's a linear or even exponential growth pattern that all entrepreneurs go through because people post the highlight reel. But the journey's different for everybody. And start one, start two, start three is a great approach. And also how you add overlap. I mean, speaking of LinkedIn, the dates on your LinkedIn, you can see that they overlap because you were figuring some of this stuff out as you had free time in your other job. And as long as you're able to do that, that's a great way to do it. I really love a lot of your strategies and want to unpack them, like doing contract attorney and of counsel type roles. And just the notion of not only does it not have to be a preconceived arc or journey, you can have a start one, start two, start three, but also reaching out to people who have done it before. So, maybe you, but certainly me, if anybody's listening, feel free to reach out to me if you're thinking about starting your own firm. I did that a ton, and it was really useful. And actually, people wound up referring cases to me out of it too. I really like how you were able to start something different from what you had seen before. It's not like you were just at an estate planning firm right out of law school and then started something imitating what you had always seen. You were able to envision something different from what you were doing that whole time. Even though you did get an example of how it goes, you had to think outside the box of your own career experience. And I think more people should do that. As you mentioned that, I realized both my parents worked for the government for their whole careers. And now I'm like always up to some harebrained entrepreneurial scheme.
Well, so one of the cool things I think about this in terms of like the psychology of entrepreneurship, part of the psychology of entrepreneurship is like at least a little bit of rebellion. It's actually really difficult for someone to step in entrepreneurship if they don't have a little bit of rebellion. Doesn't need to be like, oh, like screw the system, right? It can just be like, hey, look, my interest in putting my unique thumbprint on something, but that little angst that people have of like, there's something unique I can bring. Is one of the coolest and like most common aspects of people who, become entrepreneurs.
That is such a good point. I really do feel that way. I feel like this is a rebellion against the established law firm culture. When you start your own firm and big law, I think this with Practiced too, is that a lot of legal tech products in the past, and a lot is changing about this, but traditionally a lot of legal tech is focused on making access to law more expensive. Westlaw you can't copyright a court case, of course. So they'd copyright the headnotes and the pagination. And then to use those citations, which are common to use, that's how they have the copyright. I guess it's good, because that gave them the business interest in publishing all of that stuff, and that increased access. But I like how more courts are moving to like public domain citation now. I just think you're totally right. There is a little bit of rebellion in it. You nailed it.
Yeah.
This podcast is presented by Practiced, modern law practice management software. We built Practiced at my firm because we were tired of fighting our software. Workarounds, clunky systems, way too much admin. So we built our own, and it cut our admin time by over 70%. Practiced makes running a law firm feel lighter. Intake is fast. Engagement letters just work. Time, tasks, and expenses stop piling up. And Practiced's AI assistant can do anything a human assistant can do inside the system. You can also hand it your messy notes, forms, or questionnaires, and it generates clean, polished documents using your templates. Or just forward an email and a new matter appears. Practiced even helps you get more clients through marketing and advanced referral network features. Everything works right out of the box. No separate software for intake and case management. One system, no duct tape. And it's just $20 a month. All features, no add-ons, no nickel and diming. Get started in minutes at practiced.io. That's practist.io. The other thing that I've never really thought about that you said was thinking of entrepreneurship as actually adding certainty and stability to your life. I have never thought about it that way, but it's true because you can rely on yourself.
Yeah. I mean, that's one of the hugest things.
Yeah. I
mean,
had thought
that's
of it
the thing
that
I like
way,
about
but it
it.
is true.
Yeah. I mean, for me, the thing that was compelling for it was this. The early part of my career, like me going into government, was a rebellion against my two entrepreneur parents. And it was the realization that inside any organization that I'm in, I could do this thing that quadruples their revenue. And they could decide like, cool, and like circle back with an attaboy and like a slap on the
Right.
back. Right. And then the thing that you're commonly semi not really entitled to, but they might give you is a bigger bump than you would normally get in a traditional
Right.
cost of living adjustment. Right.
The
If you're
house
in a
always
different
wins.
environment, maybe they're going to hit you like a big bonus. Right. House always wins. And so it's like, hey, look, when you've done it for yourself, you win big. Right. Like you take all the risk on. Right. When you win, it's you. When you're losing, it's you. But when you win really big, it's still really you. Like Jeff Bezos talks about this a lot where, entrepreneurship, it's when they're throwing the pitches and you can hit like a bunch of like base hit, double. But every once in a while, you hit like a home run and sometimes you hit like 1,000 runs at once. And when you do it, you get to enjoy and appreciate the value that was created there. So that's what I love.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. There's no 4-run maximum like in baseball. In entrepreneurship. Yeah, right. I love that thing that he says. The other thing is you'll never lose your job unless you quit when you're an entrepreneur. Yeah.
Right.
It's totally
There's one rule to the game, right? Which is like, don't run out of money.
Yeah.
Keep going. Don't quit. You get to be in total control of that. There's no greater control and autonomy than deciding your own destiny.
Yeah. So that's the importance of keeping overhead super low. I'm talking about practice probably too much, but there's no reason for software to cost like over $100 a month for basic CRM. So that's another act of rebellion. It's really important to keep overhead low. The other thing that is important is to remember that your life is overhead. Your life expenses are part of your business overhead. So in a law firm, really, like we don't have inventory. You can do a virtual office. We can keep overhead really low. But you still have to eat and potentially pay for other people's food too. And you might not need an office, but you do need a place to sleep. And so I think that's something that a lot of people face is like the golden handcuffs from their old W-2 job. And then how am I going to make those payments when I go out? What was your biggest fear when you started your firm?
You hit the nail on the head, right? There's like the way that I started, I did some things that I think when I reflect back, I'm like, they're super ideal, right? Like getting started while I still had W-2 employment, super, absolutely huge, important move, right? It gives me so much cover, so much safety. Then when I did my real launch, I had this period where that was it. It was just the firm income, right? Like that's what the family and the mortgage and all the things, right? Childcare, everything was going to ride on that. Like when the rubber hit the road. And it does get scary then because you're like, hey, look, the next lead and the next client have to walk through the door, right? And if they don't, it can get pretty scary pretty fast. And so I did a couple of strategies that even now when I reflect on them, I'm like, I think those are kind of cool, kind of savvy. One of the places where I've gotten tremendous value for strategy and how I think about my business overall, marketing, lead generation, the money model of my business. I learned a lot through the books and works of Alex and Layla Hormozi and acquisition.com. They have like a lot of like really awesome materials. One of the things that he talks about in one of the books, $100 million leads, is there's really like four primary ways to reach new people, right? You can do warm outreach, reach out to people that you know, right? You do cold outreach, which can be more challenging as an attorney with the rules of professional conduct, but that's scraping email lists and sort of that cold outreach. There is running paid ads, and then there is content. And so when I was getting started, there are two big things that I did that made the biggest difference for me in dealing with those fears of like, hey, how do I get people through the door? The very first thing that I did was, and like, mind you, I tried a variety of different things, right? But the first two things that I did that were like, boom, they got me people through the door and they were clients. I did a lead generation service I used when I first got started. And sometimes people are like, should you do lead gen? They're not really associated with your brand and blah, 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 blah. When you're brand new and you don't really have a brand, go for it. I use them. Like, and the things I liked about it were they already knew how to market. I didn't, right? And I was just like, I don't have time to completely learn it from ground zero. I was in a phase where I was just like, hey, look, I need to take care of stuff now. They can target the market that you want to be able to get to. And three, they can promise that they're going to generate relevant leads. And so, you'll get into it. You'll start to see the quality of like, hey, look at the people that they bring me, the people that I want for them to bring me. And you'll be able to make choices about what you want to do. But when you're getting started, volume negates luck, especially when you're getting started. And so getting more people in, testing how it is that you sell and give offers and do those things will give you more value than anything else. The reality is this: if you talk to enough people, one of them is going to say yes, right? You're going to get some people that are going to at least say yes. Two, you're going to start to see where there is a gap in your knowledge and skills. When you're first getting started, the biggest skill that I can think of that you want to try to get nailed down is promotion. How do I get people to know about me and know about what I offer? Like, for example, the lead generation service that I went with, like their thing was like the offer that they made that I was like, okay, I think that's compelling, was they're like, hey, we're going to deliver you 20 people. We'll deliver you 20 qualified leads before you pay us. I was like, cool. If I can close even one of those, I'll at least pay for the investment that I'm going to make into this marketing. And I was fortunate I did, right? And then it's like, okay, if I close two, then, I've doubled up, right? The thing I always look for when you're trying to like keep costs low is which service is going to help reduce risk. So that's the first thing that I did, right? I used that lead generation service that got clients coming through the door. They took care of a thing that I didn't know how to do for myself, which was generate new leads. And it was the paid ads route. The other thing that I did was affiliate relationships. So I kept thinking, hey, look, no one knows me from Adam. I'm like, my family and friends barely know that I started this law firm, but there are law firms all over my state that they've been doing this. People know them. They have a brand. And so what I first started doing was I started going to the job search websites, Indeed and Vice Hire and those places to see like who's marketing for an estate planning associate or partner, and just looking and like reaching out and saying, hey, don't hire an outside person to bring in and try to cover all these benefits and other things for them. Just bring me on, right? We'll just do like a straight rev share. You get origination. I'll take this. Don't pay me any benefits. I'll handle things from start to finish as long as you are bringing them in. And the reality was this: most people were like, oh no. They're like, no, we want our own person to hold and to have and love. But like Basil said, every once in a while you get a hit with that's 1,000 home runs. And so, like my 8th or 9th firm that I'd reached out to for this was like, hell yeah, like we've been looking for this exactly. They've gone through the pain of bringing in and training a couple of different associates. Just when the person was strong enough to go right on their own, they would exit and ladder up to another firm. And they were just like, man, it's just been so painful. We've done this a couple of times. And so I was like, okay, cool. Let's start building strategy for us. And so it took us a couple of months to work out what all the mechanics would be and how everything would work, and establishing our contracts and getting reviewed by ethics counsel and making sure everything was right in place. But it worked out so cleanly because they had such a consistent high volume of these matters that it let me do a bunch of different things, right? I got to work with probably more clients than I probably otherwise would have on my own in that same time period. It gave me the way that I was able to work out the relationship. It gave me an opportunity to pitch lots of different offers and see how people reacted to them without having to incur a whole bunch of money up front, right? So if I pitched an offer to somebody and they didn't take it, so I could pitch it. There was like a really low risk to doing it. There was like a Malcolm Gladwell book that talked about this years ago. I think it was Gladwell, where he would give me the example from Second City, how after some of their shows, Second City is a super popular improv group in Chicago. A lot of the people you think of from SNL started in Second City and then laddered up into SNL. One of the things that they do is they will, after some shows, invite some audience members to hang around afterwards, and then they're all pitching their newer routines and stuff. And like, no one knows if people are like them or they're going to laugh or going to enjoy them or not. But that's what the purpose of this is, right? Everyone's getting extra value. People have already seen like the main shows, so they're not like mad if like the joke doesn't hit. And so it gives all the Second City people this opportunity to like low risk, pitch all these new ideas and see like, hey, who really likes this? Who really loves this, right? And again, all the repetition before they have to ask somebody to pay for it. And so, I was getting in lots of reps for this stuff, both on like how I wanted to pitch, how I wanted to sell. And then when I was selling people, it was like, okay, cool. I have way more clients than I probably would have trying to just do this all by myself. And so, it gave me like a huge opportunity, and like it like allowed me to hit some like key revenue targets that like I had for myself in like 6 months rather than like what probably would have taken me like a year.
That is awesome. Oh my gosh, I love it. To extend that Bezos analogy, in entrepreneurship, nobody cares about your batting average. So it
Right.
doesn't matter if 1,000 people say no to you, if one really valuable opportunity says yes. There's no award for getting 99 out of 100 instead of 1 out of 100. So that's an awesome approach. All right, let's go back. Let's unpack each of these. So you got the affiliate, or
Yeah.
you can call it co-counsel or of counsel type relationships, and you got the lead gen.
Mm-hmm.
Let's start with the lead gen service that you used. Great concept there. Pay out of earnings. That's a mistake I've made, is I feel like I have a really good opportunity. I've hired before where I think somebody's going to bring in a ton of business. So I start spending a bunch of money based on my belief that I'm about to be earning a bunch of money. But that revenue never came to be. Spend out of your actual earnings, not your wishes. Spend out of the real bank, not the wish bank. It was
I like
good
that
how
concept a lot.
Yeah, I learned that the hard way.
Yeah. But I mean, there's like a balance on it, right? When you're early on, every dollar you spend is like every dollar that you have, right? Especially if you're bootstrapping it, right? If you're bootstrapping it, then you're literally like generating the income that you need to buy the next thing that you have, right? The way I tried to think about those bets was like, they were bets, right? You don't know for sure which one is really going to work. And so the way I would bet it would be like, okay, can I make this bet? If I make this bet and it goes wrong, will it wipe me out? If it won't wipe me out, like how stable will I be if I've made the bet and it doesn't work out?
Mm-hmm.
If I make it and it works out, great. If I make it and it doesn't work out, cool. But there's always that balance where you're it is a bet and you can't count the chickens before they hatch, but make sure that what you are betting isn't going to if you're wrong, that it won't crush you.
Yeah. Okay. So the lead gen service, it was good that they showed some results before they had you pay at least. What was their core offering? Was it that they knew how to do Google ads and place those and target them well? How did they generate the leads for you?
All right. So the funny thing is, I didn't know the answer to that question before I signed up with them.
Yeah.
As it turned out, they were doing Google ads. Yeah. I was just I don't know. They pulled them out of the air. Who could tell, right?
Yeah.
So I'll share how I thought about it when I did it, and then how I look at this kind of stuff now.
Yeah.
So, and what they did, right? So what they did was they were doing Google ads, right? They were running ads on Google. The thing that they were doing that was kind of savvy, depending on where you're positioning yourself to capture clients in the marketplace. So the way that they were positioning things was hey, look, get started for as little as this dollar amount, right? So it was estate planning, get it started for as little as $500, right? And so there are a lot of people who are oh, I'm looking for estate planning. Oh my gosh, I can get started for $500. Heck yeah. And they clicked, they set up, they signed to the thing. And then they were generating a bunch of leads that way, right? Which is a valid, cool way to generate leads. Lots of businesses do this, right? They offer a thing and it's at a price point that's oh my gosh, that's what a steal. Hell yeah, I'm in for that. And then people sign up, right? So that was one way that they were the biggest way that they were getting leads.
So that's for the clients who would run these ads where clients would say, oh, $500 for my estate plan and I'll sign up.
Yeah.
But then you deal with telling them that it's going to be more than $500 probably.
That was the part that became a little challenging, right? And this is where you have to get really thoughtful about who you're working with and what part of the market you want to try to attack. Because, the nice part was it generated people, right? Mm-hmm. People said, yes, I want to do this, right? The downside was that people would be I would tell them this is what the total funding is for completing your plan. They'd be I thought it was $500. And it's well, yeah, the language there says get started for $500. And they're oh, get started. And I was yeah, I know. And then you'd have to walk them off the ledge, right? Hey, look, so that's when I started to but even those, it was challenging, but I was really grateful for it too, because it made me aware of two things, right? The first thing was it made me aware of my lack of sales skills. When you have your own business, your sales skills are one of your most important skills. It's important to understand marketing too, but for the most part, you're probably not going to have enough. You might hire somebody to market for you. You probably won't initially hire somebody else to do sales for you to get started. And so you got to learn it, right?
Yeah.
And so I started picking up books. I started listening to, YouTube videos by Alex Hormozi and Jordan Belfort, the Wolf on Wall Street guy, and his straight line method, and Zig Ziglar and Jeremy Miner, and trying to understand, like, how do I get my head around this stuff, right? Like, how do I, I thought I'm like, I'm an attorney. I think I'm persuasive. And she's like, well, yeah, you're doing the attorney thing. You're telling people too much info. So,
Oh,
yeah. And so I started trying to like get my head around that stuff. And what I realized was happening was I was like, oh, like there's just like a psychological mismatch, right? And so I have to do more work now to tee people up on what the value is that I have, how to start to preview pricing and price anchors for them. So like, those like they got anchored to like a $500 price point.
right.
And now I had to create more space to anchor them for more realistic pricing for the fees for this stuff. Now, the ultimate thing is you have to kind of decide who you want to be serving and what that person looks like in terms of what they bring to the table and how many assets do they have and what services you're going to provide and what are you going to charge, right? And so eventually I ended up leaving like the lead generation setup just because I was like, well, like there's just too much space between where people were starting and where I was. But I do think it's a fabulous way to start because you need people through the door. You need the experience of how to sell people on things. It's helpful to get people who are going to be more difficult to sell things to early on because it won't get harder than that. It will always get easier. So it's a good way to get started. As time went on, for me, the biggest thing was like those books I mentioned from Alex Ramosi, like they talk a lot about this where a lot of the biggest companies you can think of, they didn't start off with a mass product for the whole world and then go up to a premium product. In a lot of instances, they started with a more premium service. And then as they got moving, they were able to bring it down for more mass production. And so that's more of the strategy that we started to try to like move ourselves into. You didn't do it overnight, but big thing that we were doing was taking ourselves up and up bit by bit so that we could move into a better position. Because the thing I realized early on was I'm like, if I keep these numbers real low in terms of like what I'm selling and what I'm offering and how I'm selling it, bless you.
Excuse me. Sorry.
Sorry. I probably preempted the bless.
I sneezed like 5 times in a row too. I don't know if you remember that. So I'll just try to mute myself. Okay. Anyway, go on.
Yeah, no problem.
Too late.
Sorry, I'm weaving sales and pricing and starting stuff all together a little bit. So
No,
I'll
this
unpack a little bit.
lead gen is so interwoven with sales that I want to hear about how it relates to sales anyway.
Yeah. So the way that the things weave together, and like this is where you kind of have to think about like, what are you like? Where do you want to be positioned in this thing, and like, what do you want to sell, and what do you want to sell it for, and who do you want to sell it to? Lead gen is cool because when you're early on, you kind of don't know what the answers to those questions are, and it's kind of hard to feel like you work with enough people to start to get a meaningful sense, right? And lead gen will bring you the millionaire and the person who is like the $10,000 right? And so you'll get to see like a really huge swath of people. You'll get to test some of the stuff you're doing and see like, hey, look, do people really respond to what I'm talking about here? You need to do enough stuff to have a little bit of your own data to start to see how it makes sense. There's some stuff that like you just have to be in front of people and try it to realistically see. And so that was the biggest thing that it did for me when I got to the end of my time doing that, using that lead generation service. I had a really good sense of like, hey, look, clients with these sort of factors tend to say yes. And, and then I just started to get realistic about like, okay, per 20 people that I get from this lead generation service, how many of those are people that look like the people that I want to work with, right? Their net worth is this, their assets are this, their real estate values are these, they value this sort of stuff. These are the types of jobs and roles that they're in. And so, because this is who, when I pitch my thing and I share what I do, they respond very well to it. And so I was like, okay, I just want to get more of those people and less of everyone else. And it's not because everyone else isn't a worthy person to get services and support and have estate planning. It's just when I share my message, these are the people that they hear it really well and they love what I'm talking about and they can't wait to work with me. And then when I work with them, they're super happy, really satisfied. And they're so excited about everything I'm doing. And then like, there's always going to be like the people more in like the middle and the fringe where it's like, hey, look, they'll say yes to you, but like they weren't wowed with everything, like your core people, right? Your tribe of like who loves to work with you. And so you'll just come to realize that like, man, those people who are like more of the fringes and I worked really, really hard to like get the sale, they tend to be more challenging, more difficult as clients. for a variety of reasons, right? They weren't like totally convinced and all in. And then that means like they might be a little bit fearful about what they're doing. And then, if the service is more than they were expecting it was going to cost them, right? Maybe it represents a bigger amount of their wealth than another client. And so they really kind of have to demand a lot for every penny that they've spent, because a portion of what they're spending with you is a huge amount of their value, like the assets and the values that they have. And so it's just trying to figure out what is the place where what you do, what you offer, how you do things starts to hit really right, and figure out these people, they love this, they love it. And then just working to get more of those folks.
Finding that fit is so important. What an amazing point. The phrase that I've heard from potential clients when I know it's going to be a great fit is they talk about their issue. I say, let me tell you a little bit about our firm and how we do business to see if we're a good fit. And then they say, I really like your firm's ethos and I want to work with you. And when they say ethos, that's something that I've heard time and time again from future great clients. That's how you know it's going to be a great fit. Yeah. You're looking for a fit in terms of how you each see the world. And then you can really be like shoulder to shoulder partners. By the way, I think I should disclose to our listeners that I've had an absolute sneezing fit while you were talking there and you were making incredible points. I had to mute myself. I'd like to commend your level of concentration while you were looking at me, just like lose my head sneezing. I absolve you for saying bless you for the rest of the day. You've said it twice now. I've sneezed 100 times. Anyway. Okay. Do you still do Google ads?
I left the lead generation space while I decided that I wanted to have Google ads associated directly with my firm, with my brand. I'd say at this stage, it's probably 50-50 between Google and affiliates for me at this stage for new clients.
Good segue.
Yeah. And I mean, the reality is the thing I really like about marketing through Google is this. Google largely represents high intent leads. Like, for people who are kind of like newer in this, it's like, okay, what do you mean like high intent leads? Like a person who is searching for the service that you offer on Google is already usually in a lot of pain. Right. Like, usually not like, oh, well, I guess I'll look up this to see look for something I might want to do in like 6 to 10 months. Most of the time they're like, I have a pain right now. I need help right now. Who can I find who like, so that's the gift of Google, right? That people are going to look, and it's people who are like, they're looking for what you have immediately and they're not looking to wait for forever to do it. They have a lot of intention of getting something done. Yeah. Right? And then the question for them isn't, will I do this? The question for them is who I'm going to do it with. Now, for that reason, there's stuff you need to be able to be ready to do if you're going to use Google, right? And like it helps, right? Like Google, like when you're using Google, so we have pay-per-click and we have local service ads on Google. The thing you have to be prepared for is people will pick up the phone and they'll call on Google, right? Most people are like scrolling on their phone. They're looking, they want to tap the little phone button and they want a person to be on the other end.
So you got to be ready to answer the call.
To like pick up right away. Yeah. Because if they don't get a person on that phone when they call, it's Google. They're going to scroll to the next one down and call them. Yeah. Right. They don't know you from Adam. You don't know them. They're just looking for the service that says they can do it. And that's where you're trying to create enough factors through reviews and through your landing page and how people greet them on the phone when they get through to start to have the opportunity to build the trust with them that you can do what they need, that you understand them, and that you're going to follow through on what you promise them. Yeah. That's what they're really looking for.
Reducing friction.
Google's a phenomenal way.
If you think of like Uber, Amazon, all these companies that have revolutionized how we interact with a product, much of what they did was reduce friction for the customer. And if you're not able to do that, they'll go to somebody who does make it easy for them.
Right. You would be surprised the number of people who went with me, and the only reason they could tell me specifically when we would talk to them, what made us compelling for you? And they're like, every other law firm I called couldn't see me for 3 months. And then most of the other ones, like, no one ever picked up the phone. The ones that picked up the phone, they couldn't talk to me for forever on it. And which when I realized that, it was just like, okay, like everyone who is afraid about starting a law firm and getting going, like it is way easier than you would ever imagine to win, because the number of things that, like, it's easy to make a lot of different mistakes and people hold different mistakes differently, right? So what's that mean, right? So it's really easy to have a phone line and then to not pick it up. right? It can be just as easy to pick up your phone every time,
Yeah.
right? Just picking up the phone every time puts you like head and shoulders above a whole bunch of other law firms, right? When they email you, emailing them back seems like just a small thing, but it puts you head and shoulders above
It
a
really
whole bunch
does.
of law firms,
Yeah.
right?
Especially
Like
if you do it
there's
fast.
like really simple things.
Yeah.
Right. Right. And so like there's things that like are like pretty easy to win on. Like picking up the phone when people calls is like an easy thing to win on. Setting an appointment that isn't like 3 months out, another easy thing to win on. Right. Like the simplest things you can usually do are do things faster than other people. It's like one of the biggest and easiest ways to win. Like you pick up the phone faster, right? No one else is going to measure that stuff. Like you're just going to know, and like your client is going to feel it because you're like, they'll have had the experience of trying to call a bunch of other people and no one answering. And so it's just like, it's just like a small way to like, it's just a small, easy way to win.
That's an incredible point. Another sports analogy, focus on blocking and tackling well, and you'll have a good team. Okay, I have 2 more questions for you if you have time. I want to ask you about the content
Absolutely.
you have consumed, because you touched on this a little bit, and we were talking about this earlier. We were talking about, when you're thinking or dreaming about doing something, at least if you're like me, you sort of want to immerse yourself in it. And you're listening to podcasts or books about it in the car. You're watching YouTube videos about it. You're reading about it. And by the way, I should mention, we just published an ebook about how to start and run a law firm. So you can download that for free at the practice website, or it'll actually be in the link of the description of this video if you're watching it on YouTube, or you can go to practiced.io to get it, or marklida.com. But anyway, where was I? I lost my train of thought here promoting my free ebook. Oh, yeah. What books did you? I know that my free ebook was probably the main thing that guided all of your decisions. I'm just kidding. You haven't read it, and I published it a few days ago. What's the big content you consumed?
Yeah. So everyone does know this. I might not have read the text for it, but I did read from the Mark Latta ebook on how you get a law firm started. Folks should know this, right? I spent actually a lot of time when I was starting my firm talking with Mark and talking with you specifically about some of the different ideas and strategies you use. It's slightly embarrassing to share this, but the first website copy that I created, I spent a long time looking at the Lida Group's website copy. After like I created mine, someone like looked at mine and yours and was like, Ashon, are you seriously going to publish that? Because it is too similar. I was like, oh, you're right. So I went back and rewrote everything.
Permission.
I did study really heavily from the works and things you guys did. I mean, you guys have just a lot of really incredibly impressive approaches to how you've done things. And like one of the things that like I did do was, I did this like after I'd had a little bit of, time under my belt, and my firm had earned enough money to buy me a plane ticket to Denver. And I did go, so folks should know, like I did go out and hang out with you and your team. And that was pretty transformative for me too. So, the things that you're sharing, they make sense because you've done it and you've built a really pretty amazing firm. In terms of other materials and things that I've used, and like, let me give this like really important caveat. A lot of times people think like I should like read and consume all this stuff before I figure out how to take an action. And like the honest and the realist thing is taking action taught me more stuff than anything I've ever read. Reading while I was taking action was the force multiplier that let me do something better and faster than I otherwise would have. But if I'd only stayed in the mode of continuing to read, like I spent like 15 years reading materials and listening to stuff from business gurus and consuming content before I did anything. And I'm like, man, like how much faster would I have been in doing everything that I would have wanted to if I'd gotten started and listened to the stuff while I was doing it.
Yes.
The most important thing is do it listen to the content, consume the things while you're doing the work.
It's so true. Yeah. Right, so what do you recommend? You've talked about Alex Hormozi. You've talked about Malcolm Gladwell. I love David and Goliath, by the way, especially for new firms starting, because it's about how you use, the seeming disadvantages to your advantage. Good for small firms. What other, books, podcasts, anything? Yeah. All right.
So the stuff that I focus on really heavily for this stuff, there's like two universes of materials that like I tend to consume here. So the first is things that are like incredibly tactical, because it can be really easy to read like the sort of like metaphysical universe and like the things of like mindset and morning routines and like thousands of cold plunges. It's like the reality is like those things will be there for you. Can they be really valuable? Absolutely. But like for me, I needed like, hey, look, how do I do the thing I don't know how to do? And so at its core, I was like, I need materials that are going to help me figure out like the tactical things I don't know. So I'd say the biggest thing for me, like the thing that I derived the most value from has been the 3 books by Alex Hormozi. $100 million offers. I think that's the purple book that they have. $100 million leads is the blue book. And then the most recent one that released in August and is right now was the fastest selling nonfiction book. The author made more than $100 million in the sale, applying the principles of the book. He saw the book, made more than $100 million in the first 24 hours, or I think the first 48 hours, something like that, of the sale of the book. Right. But $100 million offers, $100 million leads, and $100 million money models are 3 incredible books. $100 million offers will help you with the first thing, which is like, what am I going to sell? Right. And then once I determine what I'm going to sell, it will help you figure out where you want to target and what you want to do. It will help you figure out how you want to offer what you sell. Right. Because making an offer is really important. It's important to think about like, what's the value that you're going to provide to the person and how are you going to stack the pieces of value together in such a way that they will be compelled. Like the basic notion of like the offers book is that you want to make offers that are so good that people feel stupid saying no. The next book, $100 million leads, is so you can figure out like, hey, look, like who do I sell to and how do I get to sell to them, right? How do I find the people who I need to sell things to? And what are the strategies and the tactics for making that happen? And so I applied the principles of those 2 books super imperfectly. Like there's stuff like when I could go back and look and I'm like, oh shoot, I wish I really understood that before, because I'd be like 3 or 4 times down the field where I'm at now. But applying it imperfectly has made me, it's allowed me to earn far better than any other place and any other thing I'd ever earned at, far faster than I'd ever earned, doing far better and more efficiently than I'd ever done it. Right. So, those 3-part series of books, super phenomenal. The next set of materials, like it gets really important to figure out how to sell really early on. The author of those 3 books, Alex Hormozi, has 3 or 4 very good videos on YouTube about selling and closing that are absolutely free, absolutely worth the time to get your head around. Then I read Jordan Belfort's selling book on his straight line method. I thought it was incredibly valuable for understanding a couple of really important things. One, just like the method and the approach that he uses, I think is generally helpful. I use an iteration of it. It's one of the frameworks that Hormozi puts forward called the closer framework. But it's just a really valuable way to like think about like, how are you composing the pieces of your sale? Like if, as an attorney, think about like the IRAC construction of a legal brief or like any other like sort of construction of how you put together writing. There's methods to put together the construction on how you want to walk through a sales consultation with a potential client. And so understanding those frames gives you guideposts to utilize. It helps you be able to get the learning in so that you can spend all your energy focused on what the client needs and how they're talking about things, right? Jordan Belfort's straight line method was really good. One of the big things he talks about in there is tonality, where it's not just the words you're saying, but it is the intent and the tone of voice that you're using when you're talking to people that helps them understand what you're saying and helps them know that there's a difference between what we think of when we think about a used car salesman and like we feel like they're just going to talk us into the thing, right? Versus someone who like we truly believe like they really intentionally care about us. And when you're trying to help people with legal services, you do have to sell them, right? Like otherwise they wouldn't need you and they could take care of everything by themselves, right? Sales isn't like this dirty word and dirty thing. It is how people go from, I don't know what I need and how I'm supposed to get it, to now I'm informed and I'm working with somebody to make it happen. And so understanding how you can guide people from point A to point B and guide them into helping make a good decision is incredibly. The Jordan Belfort's book was really good. Also, Jeremy Miner's materials and his NEPQ system is a really important and helpful resource. Once again, it comes down to the fundamental thing, right? The person who cares the most in any opportunity that you have to share with clients about the services you have and sell them about the opportunity to work with you, the person who cares the most is going to be the person who's going to be the most compelling and the most convincing. When you care about that client and about helping them solve the problem more than even they care about it, like they're going to want to work with you and they're going to know that like you're going to be there for them. I mean, there's always those movies where like someone goes back into the past It's like, okay, like if you went back into the past and like your former self, like you had to convince them that like they should buy NVIDIA and Apple, right? Because like they haven't blown up as stocks, but like if you invest and you'd be a gazillionaire, right? Then like you would like very empathetically talk to yourself and support yourself and like work through them. But it's like, I know what the future is. And so I want to help you with that. And so there's methods that you can use to help them get a better understanding, right? So those materials are super, super awesome. The other like batch of materials that I think is really helpful is there's like several books by Daniel Priestley. He has a variety of really wonderful materials online. He puts out lots of content. I really enjoy a lot of the works from Daniel Priestley as well. He really gets into the assets that you want to develop for your business, how you can think about your various campaigns to do outreach and marketing. The other big one that I've gained a lot of value from his materials on is Russell Brunson. My law firm operates largely as an online law firm. He's probably one of the most incredible people in terms of selling things online and helping people through that process. Everyone comes to the table with a variety of different beliefs that they have. What you're able to help people do is figure out like, what are the beliefs that are holding them back from being able to get done the thing they want to get done. Most of the time when people talk to you, like you're not the first conversation that they've ever had about this topic. You didn't introduce the idea to them that like they want to get this thing done. It's been on their heart, it's been on their mind. They just haven't been able to figure out how to make a decision to get the thing done. And usually the thing that holds us back is the variety of beliefs that we have that put us in one space or another. And so his materials do all sorts of different things, but among the things is really to help people figure out like, hey, what are the beliefs that are holding me back from accomplishing the thing that I want to accomplish? So all the people that like, I listen to lots of different stuff, but I've had to boil down where I think people get the highest amount of value for if you're thinking about launching a law firm. There's like, and here's one thing, right? There's lots of materials that are like specific, like how to launch a law firm, how to do this thing, right? Which can be really good. It's just when I was reading through those materials, I felt like they felt like to me a lot like when I was younger as an attorney and I'd read like legal writing books. Then like the legal writing book should be like a list of like, don't do this, and then don't do that, and then don't use this, and then don't use an end dash when you're supposed to use this, and don't use a semicolon when you use this. I kept feeling like, okay, but how do I write? All right. And so it wasn't until I read the book Point Made as an attorney where I finally felt like, oh, someone finally wrote the like legal writing book that told me how to do the thing I want to do, not just how not to do it. And so, you know, I felt like a lot of the like law firm specific, like how to build like a law firm materials were harder for me to get my head around, because I kept feeling like they kept telling me what not to do. Don't do this, don't do that. I was like, I could have got a lot of that from like just like an hour sit down with an ethics attorney, right? Like, of course, I don't want to make a mistake that could put me in jeopardy. Like, of course not, right? But like most states bar, you know, ethics counsel office has plenty of attorneys on deck who, before you get started, you can call and ask them gazillions of questions. How do I do this? And what am I supposed to do this? And what do you guys think about when you guys charge somebody on these issues and what? Right. And they'll give you all the information. They don't want you to show up in their office and have a bad story. Your malpractice insurer will have like a staff attorney to ask these kind of questions too. But like what I was looking for was like, hey, how do I get tactical about how I really build a business that can grow and serve me and take care of my family in the future? So the set of things that I share are kind of like what I think about the most for that.
It's a really interesting point about legal writing. First of all, I blame those books for me becoming an M- user, and then ChatGPT comes along, starts using M-dashes, and now I look like I'm using ChatGPT. But anyway, talking about the IRAC form, or like, you know, what standard legal writing format, I'll just share with people what I do on a client intake call is always the same super simple format. I say, tell me about what's going on. Tell me about your legal issue and how I might be able to help you. And then I listen to them, and then I express some level of interest in what they're talking about. That's so exciting. Or I'm sorry you're going through that, you know, like a human. And then I say, let me tell you about my firm, what we're all about, and how we charge to see if we're a good fit. I tell them about the firm, tell them about the services we provide, and what our costs are and how we structure those costs. If it's hourly and we take a retainer, I just explain that succinctly to them. And then I say, if you want to get started, it's a really simple thing. We just send you an engagement letter by email. You can pay online, and then we're, you know, off to the races working for you. And so it's as simple as that. What's going on with you? Here's a little bit about us. Here's how you get started. That's all we do. But I haven't read any books, so I don't know if that's any good or not, but it does generally work, because by the time people call, it's like you said, they're like looking to get their problem solved.
And it embodies the spirit it embodies the spirit of what I think is happening when you're selling. The Hormozis talk a lot about this too. And they're like, hey, look, if the person you're selling to, if the lead knew what you knew, they would say yes, right? If the lead knew what you knew and they wouldn't say yes, then you're doing something wrong. If the lead knew what you knew and they would still say yes, or they would say, hell yes, let's get this going, you're doing what you're supposed to be doing and you're caring about them and you're offering them real value. And at the end of the day, the person who is looking and saying, I care, I'm interested in making sure your problem is really solved. I'm here to give you real value. That person is going to be convincing. That person is going to be a person people want to work with. And it's the person who's like trying to hide the ball and keep you from really seeing what's happening. Like the people are going to like intuitively be like, I don't know why I don't like this, but I don't like it. And I don't want to do this.
Yeah, like we're a helping profession and your offering to this person should be something that helps them, makes their lives better. Really good point. Okay, last question. What is something you wish technology could do for you that you haven't seen yet? Little preamble to your answer here is you've already thought of one that we built into practice, which was, you said, it might sound trivial, but it does take a little bit of work and time for me to enter all these client details in to create a matter. I wish I could just take the email from a client and have the practice management system automatically create a matter. So we created the intake at practice.io. If you just forward, if you're a practice user and you just forward it to that email address, it automatically creates a matter with all your matter details for you in practice. So you've already done one. What else is on your science fiction wish list for what you wish legal technology did for you?
Yeah. I mean, I'm so grateful that you guys did that. It's a cool and a rare thing to get access to the founders of a technology company and then have them be like, hey, tell us what you think. And then like do it, which is pretty awesome. I'm really appreciative of that. You're welcome for sure. The things that I still wish, and I think it's a half and half list, right? Where there's a part of me that's like, maybe technology already is available to do this and I just don't know about it yet, or I'm not fully utilizing it. Because I keep reading and seeing a little bit more about like AI agents and agentic AI and like how much they can take on for you. The thing that I always feel kind of nervous about is I'm like, well, like how many different platforms are properly fully integrated that they can access, right? Like, because it's like, well, I don't necessarily want to have to redo all of my platforms and take off this and go on that. And it's just like, hey, look, you know, how many APIs can this, like, can it infinitely integrate across multiple platforms? So, because it's like, hey, look, I use Outlook, and then Outlook, and I'm a wealth counsel, and I'm listening here, and I have people reach out to me here, and then I get leads from affiliates that reach out. They only reach, like I only get the emails manually, but then I have these leads that come in through this way, and then these ones are phone calls here, right? And so the thing that ends up becoming very risky for me is all the manual data entry, where it's like, okay, look, I want to easily track and see, hey, how am I, like, just like week by week, what our client acquisition costs this week, right? What's it costing me this week to get a lead on Google versus a lead on Meta versus a lead on, right? Where am I getting the best efficiency? What should I notice as like we make our way through the month or we make our way through the season, right? As we go into the fall versus the summer, and to be able to see and spot those trend lines to know like, hey, look, things got a little bit weaker this month. Let's turn up the ad spend on Google. Or, hey, like we're really hot. We're doing really fabulous. Our cost per lead is actually much lower right now. Let's take a look at the marketing materials we've been using most lately to see what's really good about this thing. Like, what are people really liking? And how is this keeping our costs lower, right? So, there's a lot of those data points that I want to move out of the universe of like, we're manually moving this thing and that spreadsheet and then this thing and then running the table, right? To like, hey, look, this is all fully integrated and automated. No one has to like do more than press a couple of buttons a week or month. And then, it is not only giving us the things like the data points, but we're putting into it, like these are the metrics we want to see regularly so that like we're seeing regular tables on like, okay, hey, look, this is how client acquisition is going. This is your cost per lead. This is your LTV, right? This is your client lifetime value with this offer, who's saying yes, who's staying in, who's going out. And so increasingly having to do those things would be on the wish list. And then increasingly more heavily automating the ongoing nurture for new leads in a way that's smart, right? Like you can do, like there's lots of platforms like where you can preload, preset, like, it will send this text message and it will send this email and it'll send this other thing. But there's not been as many that I've seen leveraging AI to actually see how people are responding and generating appropriate responses attuned to your sales approach and your offers so that, it's easier to say, I'm going with people. Like the one flip side of like when you market on Google, like you get tons of leads. There's only a percentage of those leads that like you can like capture and like get and spend time in with. And then there's a lot of people where like, if you like your systems aren't quite strong enough, like your follow-up and nurture with them might not be as good as you really want for it to be. And so, being able to leverage technology to help with those things on front end, is a big boost to bottom line. And the last thing I'll say, since this is my wish list, increasing so I use like Wealth Counsel as our platform for composing estate plans.
Mm-hmm.
All of the best of the platforms right now, at their best, my understanding of the ones we use and then the ones I've been researching, at best, you can kind of just put like basically like contact information. I'd really love if we, either through that platform or a different platform, we were putting in the information that we're getting from our design, the time we spend designing estate plans with clients, and that like there didn't need to be like a separate, like, okay, and now I'm going to sit here with thousands and thousands of like individualized input and then writing and rewriting this thing. If it could just smartly rip out the notes that we're putting together and, help with the composition of the thing without like piece by piece, one by one inputs or inputs that we could put in one time to set up more heavily. And then, what it's spitting out, we're really just more heavily editing to ensure it complies with our goals and what the client has said and our understanding of our highest understanding of the most recent law, so that, the speed between when a person tells us what they want and when we can give it back to them can be shorter and shorter. I mean, the ultimate scenario would be there's an almost zero time delay between when a client fully articulates what they want and when we can truly fulfill it and know that it's all our marks for quality and appropriateness.
Agentic marketing, assistance and analysis, smart help with follow-ups, and then, taking it from sort of the Web 2.0 templates to actually using AI to take your client questionnaire and integrate it with your templates based on, not just the contact information, but all of the variables that go into an estate plan. The current state of AI makes all of that possible right now. And actually, those are things we have in the works at Practiced. It's a wonderful wish list.
Nice.
Those are incredible ideas. Okay, my parting thought. This is on the idea of books to read. Do you remember the 90s? There was a sensation called Life's Little Instruction Book. And it was a tiny little book that everybody got for Christmas. And it said like just a bunch of lessons, big and small. But one that stuck with me was, when someone gives you a compliment, the only thing you have to say is a sincere thank you, which is a great lesson for me because it's very uncomfortable when somebody gives you a compliment. You have given me compliments during this podcast, and I used that and I just said, thank you. Because my instinct is not to say that, just a sincere thank you. What a great lesson. Okay. Ashon McKenzie, a great lawyer, a great friend, a great entrepreneur. It's exciting to see you on your journey. We've been on this journey from when we were learning to use how to not or to italicize a comma in legal writing all the way through now and beyond. So it's going to be fun to watch your firm continue to develop. Where can people find you online?
Yeah, folks can find me at www.McKenzie, that's McKenzie, McKenzieLawLLC.com. You can also find me on LinkedIn under Ashon McKenzie on LinkedIn, and McKenzie Law LLC on Facebook or Instagram.
SHON space MKMCKENZIE. Why'd I say MK? The other day,
Yes.
I saw a little kid named George. He said, "Do you know my name?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Do you know how to spell it?" I said, "Of course. JERGE." But I was picturing a G, but I said J. Anyway,
Yeah.
All right. Thank you for being
Love
on
that.
the pod. What a great episode. I appreciate you.
Yeah, it's my pleasure, man. Thank you. I appreciate it. It's a pleasure to get to be your first guest. I'm super excited for you on this journey. Not only that, I think I got to be number 3 on Practice, and something like that. I'm proud to get to be your first podcast guest. just appreciate the chance to stay connected and our friendship along the way too.
What are you doing for Thanksgiving?
Yeah, Thanksgiving just around here.
I've been assigned the green bean casserole, which is where you just put green beans in soup and fried onions in a pan. It's like the ultimate little brother assignment for cooking. It's an absolute slap in the face. But it is good.